As a creative, when does the hard work ever stop? And if you had to start over again, would it set you back in time or would it add to your brilliance? Today, international actress, director, booking agent, manager, and now screenwriter Khadija Speer talks all about scaffolding in your career. Are you ready to get seriously creative?
Okay, well, after that, I have to sit up, make sure my posture is right.
Look, Khadija, the work speaks for itself, okay? But that's my words. Who is Khadija Speer?
Final.
Hi.
Oh, God, hold on one second. Hi.
Man on the phone, I'm Khadija, Sylvia's daughter.
Oh, really nice to meet you. Our condolences.
Thank you so much.
Khadija Speer is a Trinidadian born and raised first daughter.
Hey.
If my mother had the opportunity to be here, she would say Khadija was performing from the time she could walk. She will give you a whole story about me splitting her center table.
Oh, I want the story too.
Khadija is a creative and she is a mother. This is the first time I'm saying this in public. I'm a mother. Everyone knows I'm a wife.
Yeah.
I'm a sister friend. And everything that you said, and a teacher. I taught for 15 years.
Yeah.
And on all levels, from pre-K, come straight up to high school. I taught at media arts at an institute from the UK. Yeah.
Wow.
So we push him.
Yeah, I love it. And you said it first. You're a Trinidadian at heart. You're a Trinidadian in your blood and your bones.
Yeah.
But Trinity born, okay? We're going to put a pin in that, okay?
Trinity born.
Okay. But let's talk about that. You know, what was it like growing up in Trinidad as a creative?
It was wonderful. I started in preschool. I was discovered by Auntie Debbie. She's a dance teacher. And so I followed with Auntie Debbie straight through what Americans would call elementary school, middle school, high school. She got me involved in Best Village. And through my journey with Auntie Debbie, she was not someone that was like, she's mine. I was able to perform with all the noteworthy performing arts companies in Trinidad and Tobago, including the National Theatre Company, Festival Theatre Company, Malifaux Performing Company, the Mondo Cultural Performers, a lot.
Yeah.
The Julia Edwards Dance Company. I represented Trinidad and Tobago internationally at theatre festivals. So in the space of theatre,
Yeah.
I've done a lot. I also worked on television and radio as a radio announcer and television producer, presenter. I worked with artists from a management.
Yeah.
You know, I love business for the arts. And so studying at the University of the West Indies, I was able to own my not only creative side, but the business aspect of it. And yeah, I love the arts through and through.
I love that. And I think that's that edge, right? When you have both the business and you have the art, the craft. And I know for me, you know, being a Jamaican, I am first gen, but all of my siblings, my aunts, uncles, everybody was born in Jamaica. And growing up, I know there was always almost this path that, you know, your parents have for you, or had for me at least. And I'm just so interested to know if that was your experience too. You know, how was that growing up as a creative?
My mother, coincidentally, maybe she's living vicariously through me. I don't know, Mommy, you can say, but she wanted to be a creative.
Wow.
And her parents was like, no. My mom is a doctor. She's a psychologist like you, and she has a PhD in international conflict management. So she's an academic.
Wow.
You know, and for me, she was always supportive of everything I do in the creative world. Yes. But funny enough, when I started university, I went in there for international relations and psychology. And halfway in, not halfway in, I should say halfway in my first semester,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, absolutely not. And mommy
This
was
ain't
like,
it.
did you say you want to do theater?
Mm.
Do that.
That's amazing.
And then so I switched totally to theater, and at that time the program was called Carnival Studies, but now it's called Festival Management.
Wow.
And so I totally switched to the creative arts.
Okay.
And my mother was 100%
I love
supportive.
that.
I grew up in a single parent unit. My dad died when I was a baby. And so growing up with my mother, I always just had that one voice that was, do it.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I know we didn't talk about that before, but do you feel like that's influenced you in any of your career, or is it something that your mom and you got a chance to talk about?
I think for me, God deposited that creative, everybody, we all have that creative aspect in us, but I think for some of us who actually live through being creatives, God deposited that special extra grace for us to be able to walk in that. And so I would say, because my mother saw that in me, she encouraged me to harness it. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. No, that's good.
This episode is sponsored by Mood Bloom, a therapeutic gaming app that reduces anxiety and depression up to 45% compared to traditional medication. Clinical trials show just 8 weeks of regular play, 15 minutes a day, and 4 times a week help you to get there. So pull out your phone and play. Follow them on Instagram at Mood Bloom Game to reduce depression and anxiety.
She's always an encourager.
I believe that. And I love that. I can see it in you, right? I think when parents really instill that confidence, they allow you to have your identity from young.
Yes.
You actually reach your potential a lot quicker, a lot more easily.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things I can definitely see. And I know recently you also moved to America, maybe I think a few years ago, 6 or 8 years ago now. Okay.
Yes.
And how was that shift in your creative art? Like how you showed up? What was that like?
That is the true challenge. And it's about to get very personal because I was happy in Trinidad and Tobago doing my radio show, doing my TV show, being in a commercial here and there and teaching. And so there was this time I was doing this exercise with my students where we were doing vision boards. And I had my wedding dress up there. I had my being a famous actress up there. I had different things. And one of my students, I'm trying to remember his name right now. I can't remember right now. But one of my students, Jerome said, "Miss, you can't be a famous actress in Trinidad." I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, Trinidad is a small place. And if you want to be considered a famous actress, you have to go to Hollywood. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to Hollywood.
Wow.
And shortly after, my husband was like, yeah, this long distance thing, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And his most southern Georgia, and actually I'm lying, he doesn't speak with a southern Georgia accent, but he's from Georgia. And he was like, yeah, this long distance. And what you're doing in Trinidad for 5 people, you can do in the States for so much more. And so I had Jerome in my ear here, and he was like, "Miss, if you could do it, then I'll believe I could do it."
Wow.
And my husband would say, yeah, it wasn't really an ultimatum, but he was like, yeah, if we were really doing this, you got to come here.
Wow. But you know what? I think that moment, that student, what was placed in him to say that at that time, it sparked something in you, like, because I know something about Caribbean women, at least. I can't speak for men, right? But I know whenever someone says something that might make you feel like, you said, well, you just watch. Well, you just wait. Hold on 1 second. Wait.
Yes.
And you know what? That was probably the catalyst. I'm curious, coming to America, do you feel like at times too that you're balancing these cultural identities, or do you have to carry, both of them?
I definitely have to carry both of them, because in the space that I'm in acting, Very rare there would be a role that specifically calls for someone from the Caribbean or even someone Trinidadian. And we'll get into that. Also, it is important that I understand the culture in which I live, the American culture, and not just as an artist or an actress, but also as someone who's living here.
Right.
And my husband is from here. He's American through and through. And so personally, that has also been an adjustment that I have to make. And my child is growing up in an American culture, so I have to be able to know what is
What's
happening
going on
in order to impart the right knowledge and wisdom to him. And so, yes, one, I am balancing the cultures, and two, the transition from the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago to the United States, while challenging, embracing the challenge because I understand that this is what needs to happen for me to go forward. As Joey say, Hollywood is where it's at. Hollywood is America. It's no longer just California. Hollywood is New York, Atlanta, California, Canada, even. And so, I'm here remaining focused to put in that work.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you're doing it, man. I mean, balancing and navigating through cultural challenges, I can understand that. But guess what? You've landed roles at BET. You've been on sets with all successful titles. They Clone Tyrone, Beauty in Black, The Best Man series. And you've actually starred in and are credited as a cultural consultant in Atlanta in season 3.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to come to that story because I know we have the story there, but what have you found is the common denominator and what we like to call your brilliance? What have you found to be the common denominator?
Waiting on God, for sure. Because like all of the roles that I've auditioned for and stuff that I actually booked are roles that I felt like, okay, let's just have fun with this one because this is acting directly alongside Morris Chestnut. Some big famous actress is going to get this role, but let me have fun with this audition, right? Boom, book the role. Same thing with the Clone Tyrone. The role was to be in a commercial inside the show. I was like, this is a Jamie Foxx show. Let me have fun. I just had fun. I was eating the chicken, like real chicken on. I had a real drumstick in my hand. For this audition, and I was just like having so much fun.
I love it.
Okay, I got the email. Hey, we'd like to offer you this role.
Right.
Yeah, and I would say for Beauty in Black, like I was in the woods when I got that email. Hey, we'd like to offer you. It was from my agent. So she's like, hey, girl, you booked it. And I'm like, booked what? I forgot that I did that audition, but Atlanta is like a full story.
Okay, we're going to talk about it. We got to back it up, okay?
Yes, okay, let's back it right up.
Because I know we talked about that, but man, using your story, and I think part of being an immigrant is part of the brilliance because you bring something into the room that not a lot of people can bring in, right? You have something that is the edge.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about the story, and I really love this story because at first you actually declined going to lunch with Donald Glover.
Yes.
So let's talk about
I'm embarrassed.
Atlanta.
I had no idea who Childish Gambino was. Like, I didn't know who Donald Glover was. And people were like, even my brother, my nephew, they were like, Khadija, you had lunch with Donald Glover? Even then, I still had no idea, like, the grandeur. He was times 100 most influential person. And, and I'm like, the guy is so chill, you know, and I love that about him. So I got the call from the casting director. Hey, Donald would like to meet with you. I'm like, tomorrow's my birthday. My husband has plans for me. I can't meet with Donald Glover. Maybe can we do it another day? It's just like, girl, you want to meet with Donald Glover. Heather from Casting Tailor Made. She was like, you want to meet with him? You know what? I'll call you back. And then she calls and she's like, Donald wants to take you to lunch for your birthday. Pull up to the roti shop, and he was very, I don't know if it was Heather, if it was him. They were very strategic about where we had lunch. Pulled up to that roti shop, and there was like 20 people there. Production people, producers, writers, like all the titles.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, what's happening?
Well, let's talk about it, because how you even stood out, you move in your brilliance.
Yes.
What happened for you to even get invited to lunch with Donald Glover?
Okay, so I got this email from the casting office. It was for background roles. And so some of the things they had in there was like, this makes no sense. Do these people know what they're doing? And did I sign an NDA? I can't remember. Forgive me. But anyway,
if you did, we can cut it.
yeah. Anyway, so Heather. So I emailed her. I said, "Listen, I'm not sure what you're really asking here. Maybe you want to rephrase it. I'm an actual Trinidadian that literally just got here. And not only that, I'm an educator. I'm a cultural ambassador. I've represented Trinidad in different theater festivals and stuff. And I am known as a culturalist. So if I am going to attach my name to this in any way,
okay,
it must make sense." And she was like, "Girl, if you help me do this, I'm going to escalate your name to principal casting."
Wow.
And I was like, deal. Next minute, this lady is calling me. The director wants to meet with me.
Wow.
And, everything. I mean, I still had to audition. That was another shock for me because while fast forward to we're at lunch, and Donald said, "Okay, you're booked. You're hired."
Yeah.
I was on the phone with my agent. I was like, "You wouldn't believe who I'm having lunch with," because she called me when there was this specific role for a specific Trinidadian person. She called me. She said, "You have to do this audition."
Wow.
And I'm like, "You will not believe this." I'm literally sitting with the director of that show, like right now as we speak.
Wow.
And he was like, "Put your agent on speakerphone." And so I put my agent on speakerphone, and he was like, "She's hired."
Wow.
So fast forward, I started going to the office to work. I'm literally sitting down alongside Donald in his office, working on the script and stuff. And then I get a call from my agent. "Where's your audition?" I said, "Oh, my bad. I didn't realize I had to audition." She's like, "Girl, you got to audition." What do you think? It's not just like that.
While you're in the room with him, which is interesting, right? Okay.
And he was like, "Okay, yeah, you got to audition."
You got to go.
It's like, "Girl, we got to make sure you can act."
He says, "Okay, you still got to do it." And look at you. And they even, you played yourself. You were Khadija in the
so
episode.
that's another story. So after I handed over the script and everything, and then I saw when I got the final draft, I saw my name. I was like, God, what's the first alien's name? I'm not remembering it right now. But I was like, "Yo," and I texted. I was like, "Yo, I think y'all made a mistake. Y'all forgot to move my name." I think the character name I had there was Tracy or something. I can't remember. And so I messaged Donald. I'm like, "Hey, what's happening?" And no response. And then when I saw him, I was like, "Did you make a mistake with the name and stuff?" He was like, "No, I just want people to feel how I felt when you said, 'Hi, I'm Khadija.'"
Wow.
That was... That meant a lot.
Yes.
That meant a lot to me.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, that really meant a lot to me. And so, yeah.
Wow. And you're living in your brilliance. And I love that. And, I want to talk about something that a lot of people who are probably watching the show right now, who are actors, right? Who are actresses or who are creatives who might be thinking of, how can I show up in my full brilliance too? In an industry where directors and casting, producers, when they, in a sense, like to your point, you mentioned, they kind of determine your fate. How do you show up in your brilliance? How do you have the confidence to know that that email I'm responding to with my perspective and how I can make this better is the right thing to do.
You have to be walking in your known purpose. As a creative, you have to be sure about yourself. Because I will say this, I was reading something by C.S. Lewis, and one of the things he said is, God, like the Bible says that God created the heaven and the earth.
Yeah.
He did not introduce himself as, I'm this loving God, I'm this compassionate, forgiving, sweet Jesus. No. He announced himself as the creator.
Yeah.
And
There we go.
we being creators, we tend to look to the validation of others, because especially when you're in industries like the creative industries where, yes, people have to say yes to you. People have to say, I like you, or I like what you do. For you to advance, you first have to tap into your godlikeness.
Yeah.
And this is by no way blasphemy. I'm not saying you're God.
I believe it. We are made in his image.
Yes.
Yeah.
But because we're made in his image and likeness, we are not just to adopt the aspect of being creators.
Yeah.
We have to adopt the aspect of validating ourselves. When God created light, he said, let there be light.
And it was so.
And not only was it so, he said it was good. So when we create, we have to say to ourselves, this is good.
Wow.
We have to walk in the confidence knowing that what we created is great for the consumption of others.
Yeah.
And if we do not, then we would be living for the validation. And if we're living for the validation, we will not be able to accept that greatness.
Wow.
Accept that power.
Yeah.
Accept that, what's the word you used?
Brilliance.
That brilliance. We would not be able to really own that brilliance because we would be waiting for others to tell us we're brilliant. And so once we are able to walk acknowledging that our brilliance comes from God, because we are like God, he made us in his own image and likeness, then we would be able to walk in our purpose. If it's not our purpose, no matter what we do, we will not feel validated.
Right.
We would not feel adequate. We would not feel like we're moving in the right direction. We would always feel stuck.
Yeah.
But if you're walking in your purpose, a peace comes with it. A peace comes with the no's. A peace comes with the maybes.
Right.
A peace comes after you've put in the work, knowing that people are going to accept it, whether they accept it in the way you want them to or not.
Yeah.
You're just able to walk in that peace, knowing that what I created was good.
It was good. And it was.
Yeah.
Everybody watching, go watch season 3 of Atlanta. Trinidad born, okay? Go watch it. And I remember watching that episode and it stood out because I was finally able to see myself in something that was created, right? And something that was done here in America. It's not very often you see a real authentic perspective of Caribbean culture. So I always remembered that episode. So when you told me, I was like, you're living in your brilliance, you know?
Thank you.
No matter where you go, no matter where you're navigating. I think that's the beauty of scaffolding in your career because you bring so much with you. Your brilliance continues to grow every day and it defines something new.
When we think about scaffolding, we think about boards and steel to support a structure, right? To support an elevated structure, to support someone who is going to be elevated, right? And I think about some of the comments, because like right now I'm again trending 3 years later about that show, trending on social media. And people are saying things like, oh my gosh, this is iconic and I'm Guyanese. And I think this is just such an iconic moment for the Caribbean.
Yes.
And then I got a message from one of my former classmates who I studied with in high school.
Wow.
And he said something like, girl, you're a star since you had us acting out all those literature books in school. And then I saw one of my teachers from from elementary school saying, I knew you'd do it.
Right.
I knew you'd do it. Look how grown you are in this thing.
Yeah.
You know, and she didn't use the word like amazing or exceptional. She used the word grown.
Wow.
And that stood out to me in a meaningful way because I am growing
Yeah.
in this industry. I'm nowhere close to where I want to be. But the mere fact that people are seeing the growth is important to me.
Yeah.
And then someone said something like, I finally don't feel disrespected, signed off a Jamaican.
Right.
So not only Trinidadians,
Yes.
but the Caribbean as a whole
Yeah.
feel so validated in their
Yes.
identities and how it's represented. And Donald understood that. Donald understood because he's had the experience of dealing with Caribbean people and Trinidadians, to be specific. And so he wanted that to shine through. And when the episode came out, that was one of the things he said to me. He was like, Khadija, your input really is shining through. Thank you. And a lot of people, you work on a project and, you just move on. But he came back to say thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. And that really meant a lot to me because, it's Donald Glover.
Now you know him. Now you know. Now next time he calls, you going and you're going to bring your husband too. He's going to come. And then you might text me a little bit too on the side. I might be outside waiting for the roti, but I'm going to be there too. Okay. Look, I want to ask every viewer out there now too. How are you scaffolding in your career toward your brilliance?
Yeah.
Stop treating your creativity like a hobby.
Yes.
Let the creative corporate help you to sift through the noise and help you to design your career and brand your brilliance so you can stand out like the true professional you are.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Let's put some respect on your name, okay? I'm telling you, Khadija.
Just take a look behind the creative.